Welcome to tutorial number 3. In this tutorial called Data Exploration, we'll be looking at different ways in which you can extract more information from your data sets and select certain features based on the spatial location of those features or based on the descriptive information or the non-spatial information contained in the attribute table. The first approach we're going to look at is select by attributes. To open the select by attributes window, click on selection and then click on select by attributes. In the select by attributes window, you will find you can select a layer to work with. Let's say, for instance, in this example, we want to select only the river segments that have a length of more than 2,000 meters. Now, if we open the attribute table of Dwarf Rivers, we will see there is a field here called length that gives us the length of the different river sections, or segments rather, and we're going to use this field to select only those that are longer than 2,000, let's say 2,000 and more. So the first thing you need to do, you need to select the relevant layer. So we're not working with active mines, we're not working with vegetation, we're selecting from the rivers dataset. So I select that one, and then it tells me there's a method. It asks me for a method. What kind of method do I want to use? Now here I've got an option, create a new selection. In other words, let's start from scratch, look at all the river segments in the data set and select from them, create a new selection. Or I can use an add to current selection. Now this you will use if you say you already selected all the river segments that are perennial rivers and you only want to select from those the ones that's longer than 2,000. Then you would say select from the current selection. If you already selected all the perennial rivers and you only want to select from them those that are longer than 2,000, you're selecting from the existing selection the ones that are 2,000 meters long. The add to current selection will say, for instance, you've already selected the rivers that are bigger than 1,000, longer than 1,000, and you want to add the ones that are longer than 2,000 as well, for instance. And you'd add to the current selection, you would make the selection bigger, and then you remove from current selection. Say you selected all the rivers longer than 2,000 meters, all the segments longer than 2,000, but you don't want to see the non-perennials, then you can use remove select from current selection to remove those that are non-perennial rivers. Okay, but in this example now, let's just use create a new selection. And remember, in the attribute table we looked at length, so I double click the field that I want to use, double click it, and then I need to say what should happen in this length field. I want all the river segments that are longer than, let's say, equals 2,000 and longer than 2,000 meters. So it's not going to be equal, otherwise it's just going to show me the river segments that are, well, that is 2,000 meters long. It's not going to be not equal to, it's not going to be just bigger than, because I want to include the 2,000, so it's going to be equal there to and bigger than 2,000. So it's going to be that one and 2,000 meters. It's not going to be smaller or smaller and equal. Right, if I say apply, then you will now see shown in the blue color is all the rivers that's been selected. So if I open the attribute table, you will see that from the 8,750 river segments in the data set, 5,000 of them were selected. So for instance, I make this bigger, I make this 4,000, I say apply, and I open it again. You'll see 4,000 of them being selected, and you can see it here in the length field. That one is 5,900, but the 2361 is not selected. Right, so that's a very simple example of a selection. Now I can do combinations when I select by attribute. For instance, if I open the attribute table here again, you see there's a field here, class, that distinguishes between perennial rivers and non-perennial rivers as well. Now say I I want to select all the rivers that got a river segment of bigger than 4,000, but I also want them to be perennial rivers. Then I need to use a combined query that I write here. So what I'm going to do is now I want to use the class field as well. Alright, so they need to be longer than the 4,000, and the class of the river should equal, and here you'll see there's a button, get unique values. If I click that, it works through the attribute table and the class field and shows me what all my options are in terms of unique values. And I want it to be rivers with a length of 4,000 or bigger, and they should be perennial rivers. And then I double click that. Just note, when you work with text, these are important characters to include. When I use the numerical values, you can just write the value that you're working with. Alright, so what's happening now, it's still doing a new selection, so it's starting from scratch, and it's selecting all the rivers with a segment longer than 4,000 meters, and which are perennial rivers. So if I apply, you can see the selection now changed. The non-perennial ones have been excluded from our selection. So this is a combined selection, and just means they need to meet both of these criteria to be selected. If it was or, it could be either rivers with a segment length of bigger than 4,000, or they can be perennial. So if I say apply, you can see basically everything is selected again, because it's not an and rule, it can be either one of these two. The moment I put an and in here, it should meet both of these criteria. So I've got a bit of a finer selection that takes place. Alright, so there are different ways in which you can combine the different criteria. You can build your queries with literally 20 of these criteria in them, and apply them, and then select very specifically only the data that you need. So let's use one of the other methods. Let's say let's add to the current selection. Now remember, I've already selected now all the rivers that meet this criteria. Okay, so now I want to add to these also let's say the dams. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to say double click class equals dam. So add to the already selected ones, all the dams. Apply. You can see the same ones that were selected is still selected, but a few were added. They will be small, so you won't be able to see them here, but they've now just been added to the current selection. In the same way, I can say let's remove something from the selection. Let's now remove all the rivers with a length bigger or equal than let's say 6,000. So let's remove those from our selection, and you can see only a few of them remain now. It's basically, I think, the dams that's still there. All the rest has basically been removed from our selection. Right, so you need to play around with the select by attributes tool. So download the data from eFundi, these three layers that you see here, then open the select by attributes tool and play around with the different selection options. Use the different methods as well as all the different functions here that you can use to build your queries. So the get unique values, they're the ones you use to investigate your data. So if I look at length and I click get unique values, it will generate this list of the smallest to the biggest value. And because this is numerical, I don't have to use the exact value. I can just then say I want to select all the rivers that are, say, bigger than 4,500, and then it will start automatically. When it runs the query, it will select everything from there basically, and upwards will then be selected in the process. When you work with text, like the class example, in that case you need to be more specific and use the exact class or unique value that you would like to select. So download the data from eFundi and play around with select by attributes to practice this skill. You will also find examples on YouTube and videos. Just Google select by attributes and you will see various videos available that will help you as well and give other examples of how to use this function.